Welcome to the Gay Buddhist Forum, where teachers from all schools of Buddhism offer their perspectives on the Dharma and its application in modern times, especially for LGBTQI audiences. These talks are offered freely to the world and made possible by appreciative listeners. If you would like to support our efforts to share the Dharma with underserved audiences, please visit gaybuddhist.org. There you can donate, find a list of upcoming speakers, or enjoy many hundreds of these recorded talks dating back to 1996.
So, welcome back. At this point in our program, we go around and introduce ourselves by either your first name, last name. My name is David Lewis.
My name is Lee.
I'm Casey.
Paul Shepard.
My name is Tage.
I'm Jack. Michael.
Mark. George. Michael.
Joe. Jerry. Kurt.
My name is Clint.
Peter. Dakota. Yes.
I'm Jerry.
George.
I'm Ian.
I'm Kay.
My name is Harley Shapiro.
My name is Mamoy.
My name is Tony. Eric.
I'm William.
My name is Peter.
My name is Robert.
And Jim.
Rich.
I'm Frank.
My name is Michael.
Jeff. My name is Jerry Jones.
I'm Paul. My name is Bruein.
My name is Oswaldo.
My name is Lewis.
I'm Jim Stewart.
My name is David.
I'm Kurt.
Miss anyone? Thank you. Our speaker this morning is Suvanna Cullen, who is, what's your position at the center?
I'm the creative director of the center.
The director. So she is one of the kind of people that make this space available to us. We share this space with their group and many others. Suvanna was ordained in 2001 into the Western Buddhist Order, and she's the director of the San Francisco Buddhist Center and a writer. She teaches classes and retreats at the San Francisco Buddhist Center, workplace wellness and mindfulness-based stress reduction at local businesses, and is in occasional meditation classes at the San Francisco County Jail. Her humorous advice column, Ask Auntie Suvanna, was featured in Dharma Life, a British Buddhist magazine. Other writings have appeared in What Book, Buddha Poems, and From Beat to Hip Hop, published in 1998, and Challenging Times, Stories of Buddhist Practice When Things Get Tough, published in 2007. She is currently working on a book about meditation. So, welcome, Suvanna.
Thank you very much. I'm just wondering if I can. If I use this table.
Oh, yeah, sure.
And I have two more questions. So one is, obviously you put that there, so that's a good place.
That's recording.
That's a place for that to be. Okay, good. And then my other question is it okay if I take a picture of you all? You're so cute. Jeez, good. Wasn't quite everybody, but yes. So I'm going to talk about neediness and love, or possibly unconditional love. And obviously this isn't an obviously traditional topic, though I do think it is linked to several things that the Buddha talked about, which I'll bring out a little bit of that. I haven't quite thoroughly thought about that, but hopefully you will be able to relate to some of this. Anyway, so our order has about 1,800 people in it who've been ordained in this order, and we have a monthly reporting in journal called Shabda. So they're mostly in the UK and in India and in Europe and Mexico and all over the place, not so much in the United States, but there's this journal that we all get, and we all check in with each other and find out what's going on. So I thought I would read you a little excerpt from one of my Shabda reports. Shabda is the name of the journal, from a couple of years ago. At the end of my sit this morning, I sent healing moonlight to all the people I've had silly crushes on, or just generally acted weird around in the last several months. It felt great. While I have not yet regretted that my husband and I broke up last year, the actual experience of being single has been very different from what I imagined. Instead of being the free and easy androgynous pillar of light I figured I'd be, I turned into an at least occasionally weird, needy bastard. As it were. I'm trying to be less judgmental. So I think before this time, I primarily noticed other people's neediness. You know, when it's like you have this feeling that somebody wants something from you, and maybe they're not even that clear about what that is. They don't seem particularly aware. I think there's all different kinds of version of it, but it's just kind of this feeling that you get from someone. And I was thinking of examples of this, and I was thinking possibly a really good example of this as well is cats. Like, cats seem to really not respond well to neediness. And I know this because a cat and my friend just moved in with me. And I haven't had a cat in a long time, and I really like cats. So I'm like, trying to pet the cat all the time, and I could see the cat just going, "What? Get off me! Like, what is wrong with you?" Sometimes when I'm giving a talk, I'm really sort of like, I want everybody to just look totally fascinated, and laughing constantly, and I feel really like, oh, I sort of want a particular thing to come out of that. And I guess part of the reason I'm interested in this is because I'm so embarrassed by it. I became so painfully aware of it after I broke up with my partner, just like wanting to be adored, basically, wanting to be loved, wanting something. I mean, obviously not all the time and in all situations, and sometimes it has a romantic tinge, sometimes it doesn't, but this thing of just wanting something from people. And some friends of mine who had all just broke up with somebody, we kind of got together one night, and we formed what we started calling Needy Bastards Club, which you would really be astonished to know how many people have wanted to join this and got really freaked out when we said, nah, that's pretty much closed. But anyway, I think kind of, this relates to desire, right? And this is one of the central teachings of the Buddha, which he noticed that just as human beings, we have these urges, we have these impulses. We deal with craving, and that's, of course, one of the Four Noble Truths, and then also what are called the three poisons, right? Craving, confusion, and hatred. So I think to me it has two components. There's this component of wanting attention of some kind, but it's not only that. It's wanting attention of some kind, and it's not being aware of it, which I think is very key to what the particular kind of state that I'm talking about. And I think what's behind it is this kind of sense of incompleteness that we can have just as human beings. I think, we're all seekers of one kind or another. Everybody out there also is a seeker of one kind or another because we want something. I mean, and you might not relate to the word needy, which is totally fine. it's just something that resonates with me. But basically, I'm talking about unaware desire or unaware craving. And I think it's possibly universal. I think it can be interpreted, it can manifest in different ways. The response can be an aware response, or it can be vague. It can be self-referential, or it can have a more open quality. It can be contracted, or it can be more kind of radiant or expansive. And so what I'm going to talk just a little bit about where I think it comes from. So I said a little bit about what it is or might be, where it comes from, and then I'm going to say a bit about something that I think is very related, which is this idea of unconditional love. So in terms of where it comes from, I think probably, or possibly most of us might start talking about our parents or our childhood. I think that's just part of our culture. But I was thinking about that, and I was thinking, yeah, but everybody has this. So does that mean, to some degree, sometimes we all want something. We all want to be loved. So does that mean we all had some issue of not being loved enough at some point in the past? It might be that. But I guess I would say that I think from a Buddhist point of view, this kind of conditioning, this kind of wanting, it might start before our parents. And that can be interpreted in different ways. I think all of them might be correct. But I think the most important thing about this is that there isn't really anything that just has one cause. I think a lot of times some confusion of ours can arise around trying to attribute one cause. I'm in pain right now. This person, as an example, this person is the cause of this pain, the one cause. But there are many, many, many conditions that come into being that create results. And I think in this case, probably in any case, the primary cause is that we are human beings. And part of being a human being is love, is some kind of feeling of being connected to life. I think somewhere in human beings that's just there. And it's more or less painful, and we are more or less capable of dealing with that need that we have. So this is our situation that we're in. If we feel needy, some of us, we might choose that label that we're feeling needy. We might not. But what we have, of course, and probably every teacher that comes in here hammers on about this, so I'll just join the crowd, which is that we work with what's happening now. And this is, possibly more useful, if not just as useful, as looking at the past and trying to figure out where things come from, because we have now, right? So this idea of metta, or unconditional love, that we have in Buddhism, I think for me, what kind of resonates for me, and what I feel like I learn over and over and over again, is that any kind of sense of longing that I have to accept it, if I can even appreciate it just as a part of meaning that I'm alive, that I'm a human being that's alive, which doesn't necessarily mean acting on that longing, although it might. I think that at least part of the Buddhist path for probably anyone means exploring desire, exploring impulses, urges, exploring longing, and trying to bring as much awareness to this as we can. And making our desires, making our cravings conscious as much as we can. And if we feel guilty about them, that's adding like another layer of complication. And we can be aware of all that too, as much as we can. If we have aversion toward ourselves for whatever we're feeling, then we also need to bring that as much into awareness as we can. I mean, obviously, as you can tell, I have some degree of a conflicted relationship with this idea of being needy. And I'm trying to, and I do often just find it interesting, and I want to know what it is. And in a way, I want to just, have that be all right, really. As long as there's no cat around, it's probably all right. So, I guess there's this question, and maybe this is a question that we all could need to figure out for ourselves at some point, like what this idea of kindness or metta or loving kindness in Buddhism, like all kinds of people can say what they have figured out that it means, and we can look at traditional texts and we can find out all this stuff, but I guess each of us can ask, what is my practice of this, and what does it feel like, and how is this any kind of a guiding principle for me? Is this helpful to me? And I thought of a couple of different ways to have an idea of what this is. So this sentence came up for me, which is that loving kindness can be, a creative, engaged response to our beauty as a vulnerable, at least occasionally confused beings with conflicting desires. A creative, engaged response to our beauty as vulnerable, at least occasionally confused beings with conflicting desires. I also often think of it as an embrace, a complete embrace of just all the moments that we have, a loving embrace. And this is I think we do hammer on about this kind of thing in Buddhism, but there's so many moments, and there's so many times that we can, we just kind of forget, or I forget sometimes that that's what I'm doing, and then I remember it, and I'm like really happy, and then I sort of, I suppose to some degree, like just the veil drops sometimes. That's separating me from what's happening now. So it's hard to remember. Sometimes when we remember, it's hard to do. And I guess what I also relearn is just this idea that I can't get away from anything. I love that title of that Pema Chodron book, The Wisdom of No Escape. I think that's what she was getting at. You can't get away, really. And that somehow that is a gift. And I sometimes have very strong experience of this feeling of just this total appreciation of life. Last week I was at the Caltrain station in San Carlos. I was coming back to San Francisco, and I got the train time wrong, so I just I was there for ages, and this guy, this veteran, possibly homeless guy, was there, who I just ended up chatting with the whole time, waiting for the train. And he was, I think I could say, raving on about, Obama's not American and stuff. And I just, I could feel myself like, where's the train? But I was trapped there, and I just ended up, I was like, whatever, I just talked to him the whole time. And I just, I started finding his face really fascinating. He was really tan, he had all these wrinkles, and I just, somehow, he had so many defenses that he was sort of constantly putting out there, and somehow I just got this sense of him as being actually quite defenseless. And the train came and I left, and I felt like I loved him. And I have moments on retreats and stuff where I feel like I can just, all the moments that emerge, I mean, not only on retreat, but it's a lot easier on retreat. All the moments that come up, I just, it's just life. And I think neediness and awareness is just our sensitivity, this kind of longing that we have, and becoming a bit more other people referential and kind of a less contracted response to that, and just knowing that everything is all right. Sometimes things are terribly sad, but they are still all right. I kind of have more stuff on my paper, but I kind of feel like maybe that's all. I did have a nice quote from George Santayana. He was a Spanish-American philosopher. He was a contemporary of William James. He said, "The truth is cruel, but it can be loved, and it makes free those who have loved it." The truth is cruel, but it can be loved, and it makes free those who have loved it. I just find that really beautiful. I don't know how long that was or how much time we have, but if anybody has any comments or anything, I would be happy to hear them.
I want to thank you for introducing to my awareness the two words conflicting desires. I don't think the neediness comes from one desire, but from the conflict.
Yeah, exactly.
Thank you for your topic. It reminds me a lot of I heard this on that Peter Gabriel called "Love to Be Loved,"
Mm-hmm.
and how when I'm sad and lonely, I love to be loved.
I'll look that up. I don't think I'm familiar with that song.
It's a beautiful example of how we go through, instead of to be with our own emptiness or neediness or loneliness or separation, we go through all these machinations and in a very defended way, creating a lot of problems, complications.
Yeah.
And just strikes me we would be we'd be so better off, so much better off if we, as cultures and animals on this planet, we can acknowledge that.
I just spent last weekend studying with John Peacock, who's a Buddhist scholar at Oxford University. He's over here for a while. And he's a translator, and he suggested that loving kindness was not really a very good translation for metta. And his translation is boundless friendliness,
Nice.
which I've just been sitting with for the past week. I really like that.
Yeah, me too. Thank you.
So thank you for your forthrightness in sharing these experiences. And I want to return particularly to the place where you at the very opening, where you were talking about your discovery that what seemed to be the neediness of others, that there was the neediness of self. And it reminds me of the years of puzzlement that I went through as a recovering codependent. Because on the one hand, there was Buddhism, which told me that loving kindness, compassion, and American society, caring for others was a good thing. And then there was Coda, in which wise people told me that codependence is a bad thing, but they seemed sort of similar. And the conclusion I eventually came to was that the issue was whether I was really doing it for them. That was the loving kind, the selfless. Selfless is a critical thing. Loving kindness and compassion, or whether it looked like it was for them, but it was really for me. And then there's the mixed issues, which you've mentioned and other people have mentioned. So there's a beggar in the street, and I give them some money, help them, make me feel good. They're both there.
Yeah.
And what I think is helpful that I think you're surfacing is a recognition of those may allow us to deal with situations with more wisdom.
Mm-hmm. Yes, thank you very much. That reminds me of a couple things. One is that my sister is very involved in Coda, and she'll say things like, somebody needs help. I mean, I'm grossly overgeneralizing. It's something like, somebody needs help, and I'm not going to help them. And that's what she needs to do. She needs to not get in other people's stuff and just step back a little bit. And I'm always but I think that exact confusion that you're talking about is in there. And
it's finding the middle way that's the problem.
Yeah. And I forgot what the other thing was. Anyway, thank you. That's very interesting. Yeah, but you and then in the back. Yeah.
Thank you for your share this morning. For me, neediness, when the topic came up, it's such a core issue for me that it's like something that I protect really tightly because I'm so unused to exposing it to the light. And so I just value so much just having a discussion like this. And it occurs to me from my practice and where I am in my life that sort of like we start out as these little beings that are absolutely needy and we're designed to be needy and we can't do anything but being needy. And then they push us away from needing other people to fulfill our roles and we're supposed to grow up and be self-sustaining. But yet nobody really ever gave us the tools to meet that neediness because nobody can. I think that that's sort of a spiritual possibility, but rather than a practical and emotional human. But my understanding for how I interplay with it now, because it's still present as much, and I hope it still is present at 90 as it is now, to honor it, to honor the beauty of the inner child that needs whatever it is that's not being met, and to not have to react to it anymore, not to let it write the storyline, but acknowledge it. I for so long thought that I should just shut it off or be ashamed of it or deny it, and that was the way, because I, as a self-realized adult, shouldn't be having these things.
Yeah.
But if I live that way, I'm not enjoying the joy of and the beauty of everything that I am, sort of, if that makes any sense. And so now I embrace it, but I don't let it write the story so that it draws me along into places that take me off whatever path seems to be the path of light and lightness, because I love what you read at the end, because I really believe it's true. It can be cruel, but it also, if you embrace it, it's very freeing.
Mm.
So.
I think that's really interesting, and it reminds me of one of the things I was going to say in response to the other gentleman, which was that I think part of the reason this is so interesting for me is because I've, some kind of a view that, or persona that I don't need anything. And that's what creates this kind of tension. It's not just that having those feelings is an issue, it's just that having those feelings is only an issue if it's not supposed to be that way. And I'm sort of not supposed to need anything. And I think it's really interesting to look at, how we feel about that and what it means and should it be happening. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks so much for your talk. It was very gentle, and it just made me think of a couple of things. Since April last year, April 2010, I've had severe sinus pain. I mean, really acute. It hasn't been diagnosed yet. We're going on a neurological path. And it's just been hammering me emotionally. And part of it is that I don't think anyone can believe how much pain I am getting from the sinus thing that's 24/7, and narcotics don't even completely wipe it out. And I was meditating the other day, and I was really paying attention to where the pain was, and giving it a lot of physical space, imaginary physical space almost. And because I felt my eye was tense because of this, and I felt that relax, and at the same time I felt this joy. And it's because, summer's my favorite time, and I really enjoy, going out with my friends, and I don't even know if it was, but I felt this joy, and then the observer in me went back and went, this is just really interesting, having these two concurrent feelings. And it's a little bit, it was very, it gave me hope, that I might be able to cope a little bit better with this. And I know that I'm not going to be able to cope like that moment. I can't try anything to recapture that moment. But just knowing that it's a possibility, gave me some hope, because I've been feeling really severely depressed with this because there's no diagnosis. And one thing is I don't tell anyone about it because I don't think they're going to understand, and I begin to tell, people about it. And, so thanks, because I feel tremendously needy, but a lot of the need can't be helped by anybody else. I mean, at this point, I've gotten to, lots of doctors, and we're still working on it. I just got to take care of myself the best way I can, get hugs and things like that. But it's the neediness sometimes makes me feel so. There's a lot of self-loathing that comes in with being so needy, and so I don't even express the neediness a lot of times. It was a great topic, and thanks for your presentation.
Thank you so much for sharing that.
At the risk of anthropomorphizing a little bit, but I enjoyed your reference to cats, and one thing I've heard about cats versus dogs is that cats are not afraid for their job. I've been a dog person all my life, and certainly love my pets, and they're needy of my attention and affection. But I did have the experience of living with a cat for a while. And that was a very interesting experience, because through that, I learned to see cats in a new light. And I became aware that no matter where you are, at least in San Francisco, you're likely to be observed at that point by a cat. And they are very attentive of their environment. And again, it's... what goes on in a cat brain is not something that we're bound to know, but they exemplify detachment for me in a very real way. So I appreciated that reference you made at the beginning.
It reminds me of, I think it was Joseph Goldstein who, actually it's different I think different teachers have brought this up, but there's some story about the difference between being a dog chasing after, not even a bone, like a fake plastic bone, and like running after the bone, trying to get the bone, versus a lion that turns to face the thrower, I believe is what the story is. Anyway, I'm sure there's some very positive dog analogies as well.
Thank you for your talk. I hope you're celebrating being a needy bastard. I'll tell you a story. About 10 years ago, I walked into work and I was having a bad day. And a friend of mine walked into work and he was having a bad day. And I got this idea. Let's celebrate National Victims Day. And every time we see each other, we'll give a video. Pull each other up. Because I think sometimes we don't celebrate our humanness.
Yeah.
And how we're feeling. Like we have anger and we're like, oh, we got to get rid of that. We gotta
Yeah.
But if you do it through a sense of humor and allowing to have that feeling, then, I mean, I forget sometimes. I have another friend I do this with too, and sometimes she doesn't want to admit being a victim. She wants to stay in her victim, and she doesn't want to celebrate it. So I'll just kind of say on everybody, like, celebrate wherever you are, because we all can relate, and not have the shame going on saying, boo-hoo, I'm a...
Yeah, stuff that's just making it worse.
Yeah, so I invite you all to celebrate your own National Victims Day.
Yeah, thank you. Wait, here and then over there. Yeah.
I just want to echo a couple of said Jerry and Paul. I mean, since there's a shame involved in being needy, that just makes it even. It's like the second arrow. You're needy and you feel pain from that, and then you feel like you can't articulate this neediness because of all the shame and all the negative thought. And I think it's kind of the cruel trick of the universe that the more you want something, the needier you are, the less chances you are going to get that.
Yes, I know. Yeah. It's like repellent.
I've been in both places where I'm tremendously needy and really wanting, affection, love, whatever, sympathy, whatever, and feeling like it just wasn't coming. And other times where I felt very light and playful and independent, and I was getting all this. It's great to get it, but it wasn't like I have to have this. It's just like a nice little side benefit.
Yeah.
So it's just kind of you can see that play.
Yeah, and I think that really illustrates, like what you would call a cycle of suffering in Buddhism, where the thing that you're for is exactly the thing that you can't get, which makes it worse, and just all of this stuff kind of feeding off each other. And then, hopefully if we can bring a little bit of awareness in there, we can, at least interrupt that cycle a little bit.
And just one thing. I have a cat who in a former life must have been a dog because he's very needy and affectionate.
Yeah, thank you very much for your provocative and generous share. I have 3 questions. Do you think this is the source of dukkha? Do you think that this is the challenge to a spiritual quest? And do you think there are gender differences in the experience of
the orientation differences?
Yes.
Yeah. Wow, interesting. Let me ask the last one first. Talk about the last one first, because I gave a talk similar to this at our Sangha night, which is on Wednesdays, and I was really surprised. Somebody said, I wasn't planning on doing Q&A or anything, and somebody just started asking questions, and so that's what happens. But it was almost all men. And I was really surprised. I would have guessed that it would have been more women. So, I don't know what the gender thing, I'm sure there are gender differences, but I don't know what they are because I was wrong about my only guess that I ever did. And then, sorry, what was the first thing about?
Well,
I can only remember one question at a time.
Gives us this dissatisfaction to get us to ask questions and to become aware. I mean, why?
Yeah, I feel like, I guess my kind of view on it is it seems like we have this longing starting from being a baby, the things that a baby wants, etc., and as that becomes more convoluted and interesting as we grow up. And I guess I feel like that longing, it kind of has different paths. It can go down the path of, I want this, I have to get this, I'm not even that aware of what's going on, and that's what I have to do, and then some kind of dissatisfaction that's just tied into that. But I think it can also, it's funny, I don't feel like I don't know if I can even quite articulate this, but I feel like it can also be just love and appreciation. And those things are not, I wouldn't say, like, essentially different. I think it's just a question of, like, manifestation. I think the basic longing that we all have can just go different directions. And I suppose, what we might try to do in Buddhist practice is, create, as I'm sure as we all know, just creating less suffering for ourselves, just as the prohibitive side, but then also just, letting the connection that we all have with life, just letting that flower. And I think those two things actually start from the same place. And I think awareness is a big factor in there. So
I was very moved by your talk, as well as provoked in my thinking, and also by your share. And I'm struck by how neediness is a quality that we tend to think of as a bad thing, and vulnerability as a thing that we think of as a good thing, and that in many ways they're two aspects of the same reality. And as you spoke about the pain you were in, I was thinking, you said that you were reluctant to speak about it because it revealed such neediness. And yet I was so grateful for your vulnerability in exposing your reality, and it brought up an upwelling of compassion. So I'm just struck by the dance of these things, and how naming them as good and bad, and we want to go towards this one and away from that one. It's much more nuanced than that, and it's, as you say, about breathing into it and seeing how it can open your heart to what is.
Yeah.
It's very apropos to me.
Yeah. Thank you.
I was thinking about neediness and my own neediness, and I was trying to think even what's behind neediness. And I was thinking, is it our desire to have safety and security in a world where there isn't any? Or is it something more like affirmation, recognition, something to do with our self-esteem?
Yeah.
What do you think?
Yeah, I think that's a fascinating question. It seems to me like, I know this bugs some people, but I'm kind of into like temperaments and personality types and stuff, even though actually that can be quite annoying as well, but I find some aspects of it interesting. I mean, it seems like for some people, safety is a huge issue. I mean, I think there might be possibly a thread through everybody, but for some people it seems like the theme is like never being able to be loved enough. And it's just this constant thing. It comes out in relationships, it comes out at work, it comes out all over the place. Or, being afraid and needing stability and like safety. So I think probably those threads are more or less magnified in different people, but I think what I'm calling neediness and this kind of insecurity, I think would probably include all those types of things. And I mean, yeah, I think it's a basic fact of life that, I mean, in a way, there are more or less stable countries and situations, etc. But in a way, we're not safe. We have vulnerable human bodies, and we cannot control what goes on around us. So we are susceptible to all kinds of pain and disease and trouble. And I think coming to some kind of relationship to that is our challenge from a certain point of view. Does that make sense? Yeah. How are we doing on time? Are we good?
We should probably wrap up.
Okay.
Will you be available to hang around for
sure,
a little bit during our social hour?
Yeah.
Do we have any announcements this morning? Gary?
Next week we'll be having open discussion. And if you haven't been here before, we break up into small groups, and the leader usually chooses the topic.
Thank you. Okay.
Good morning, I'm Kay, and I'm the stand-in host this morning, and welcome to GBF, to all of you. We have social period, as David said, and enjoy the refreshment out there. Also feel free to have tea. If you use tea cups, please wash them and put them back on the rack. There's also a sign-up sheet for newcomers, so if you'd like to stay in touch with this group, please write down your street address and the email address. There also is a group of people who usually go out and have lunch around 12:30, and if you'd like to join that group, look for them near the front door around 12:30. And finally, I'll be coming around with a dinner ball, so we would appreciate your generosity in helping this organization keep going, and the suggested donation amount is $5 to $8. So thank you very much.
Actually, I have a little announcement too. I'm teaching on Thursday. I'm starting a 6-week class, it's basically meditation for stress reduction, and it's downtown, First and Market. It's at a yoga studio there. So if you know anybody who works downtown who would like to try to chill out a bit more, it's stressreductionatwork.com is where the information for that is. And I was going to do a transference of merit. Did I miss my chance for that? Or should I wait?
That's next.
Good. Okay, good. Sorry.
That's next. Any other announcements? Well, let's gather in a circle, and Suvanna will help us dedicate service.
So we'll just say this phrase that we use in our group, and I'll say it 3 times. So if you would like to join me, please do. May the merit gained in my acting thus go to the alleviation of the suffering of all beings. May the merit gained in my acting thus go to the alleviation of the suffering of all beings. May the merit gained in my acting thus go to the alleviation of the suffering of all beings.
Thank you for listening to the Gay Buddhist Forum. If you would like to hear several new talks per month and be notified of upcoming speakers so you can participate live, please subscribe to this podcast, like us on Facebook, and join our mailing list by visiting gaybuddhist.org.